Hey guys, it's me again. I'll be replacing the both front wheel bearings on my 98 Ford Escort. So while I'm doing that, I'll just show you guys how to do that. Um, it's a pretty basic job. You don't really doesn't require too many tools. Impact guns are always nice, but you can find a way to do it without. So as we go along, I'll show you that. Now the first steps to get a flat level ground. If you can, I'm just using my driveway, and what we'll do is we'll jack my car up with two jacks, and it's always important to use double jacking and blocking, because just this alone, if the hydraulics failed and I was under it, could crush me. Now I'm still debating whether I do the double blocking and jacking, because I won't actually be under the car, I'll be working beside the car. So the first step is to find your jacking points, and then we'll go from there. So I'll do that and we'll flash back to the
So
next
just to
step.
quickly show you what I mean by jacking it up, this is what I did. I just found the strongest jack point, which I didn't look in the owner's manual. In your owner's manual they should have jack points. I don't have one. But just find the strongest point. And before you want to totally jack up your car, you want to loosen the lug nuts on your wheels. That way you can get them off when you're jacked all the way up. Then it's just a quick turn and your tires won't rely on the brakes to stop them. If you have an impact, shouldn't matter too much, but don't take the chance. So this is what I did. So I just found that jack point up there and over there. So I jacked it up just enough so the tires were barely off the ground. I loosened the lug nuts and I took the wheel off fully. Just for extra security, I did put an extra blocking in there just in case it falls. And that's mainly just so if it falls, it's not going to wreck my rotor or any steering components if it does. So that's what we're looking at. So the first step is going to be is just to take off this brake caliper, and by doing that you'll just see these bolts back here. You're just going to loosen those off and the whole caliper should slide off. Now it's always good to have a piece of string to wrap around here and tie up to your spring or anything, because you never want to drop it on your brake line. That could stretch, crack, and break it, and then you'll lose your brakes totally. And it's always a good idea to keep track of what's going on inside with your brake pads, like the spring. You want to keep track of how it was put in. So be it you take a picture, video it, or just keep a mental image in your head. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to loosen these off, slide this off. It should come off with the caliper and hole, and then this rotor will come right off, and I'll show you when I get to that step. So I took the caliper off, I just hung it by a piece of string up to the spring. So now my calipers are just hanging there. The springs didn't come off the brake pads, so that's a bonus. But you have to be careful because there's shims on the brake pad, brake caliper holders that will stay in place. So keep track of where those shims came from. And the rotor, just after you take your tire off and the caliper, it just slides off like so. I didn't touch anything, I just took the calipers off, took the lug nuts off, and that slides off with it. And then it leaves you this. Now the next step is going to be to take off your steering arm and this bottom pitman, or not pitman arm, but bracket that just comes off. You just unbolt it fully and it'll slide right off. From there you'll need to take this off, and this will come sliding right off, and that's where your impact's pretty handy. So once you take these two bolts off, this arm off, and the bottom one, I don't know if you can see it right here, then it will this whole component will come off, and this drive axle will just slide right out from in here, and I'll show you that. Now, what's broken is the wheel bearing inside here, and there's a good way to test that. Is when your car's jacked up, you can start it, and when this is turning, if it's making a whistle sound or a loud grounding kind of noise, that means it's your wheel bearing. Okay guys, so I pulled the bolts off, and as you can notice, the spring is missing. Well, earlier on in the year, or I guess last year, I went into the ditch, and I guess I hit hard enough where it broke the spring mounting here, so it was just sitting in there, and it felt like it was steering weird, but I always thought it just needed the wheel alignment. But when I jacked it up and had this come down, I could notice it was wiggling, and it ended up that the spring itself fell right out. So all it does is sit in this, it sits in there, this goes right on there, and then it's bolted on, and this is just kind of a rubber, and it holds it on there, holds it in place. Well, that's why my car was not steering right, so now I have to fix that, which is all you have to do, which is you have to unbolt this anyways. So you unbolt that, unbolt the 4 top parts, and the whole thing comes off. But in my case, since it was broke, it just came off, and then you just have to take off the clip for your brakes. So I guess there's an extra job in here that I didn't know about. And here's where you'll have to take your nut off here, and there's just an indent that you have to bend back, and then just use an impact to take that off, and then it will come off. You take this off, the bottom arm off, and this whole component, the steering knuckle, will come with you. And then since I don't have a puller, I can't take the bearings out, so I'll have to take it to a shop and they'll do it. But the bearings turns this basically. It allows this piece to turn inside this, and that's where the bearing goes. So unfortunately, that's all I can do for today, since unexpected delays. Yeah, I'll come back later on with the parts, and I'll show you how to install it all. Okay, thanks. So that's the steering knuckle component. I wrote on driver's side because I'll be taking it into the shop to get the bearings pressed. But as you can see right in there, that's the bearing. It just sits in this shaft with the seal, which I can see is no good. And this comes out, and it's just a shaft that the bearing inner race goes in, outer race on this part, and that's your whole thing afterwards. This is the drive component of your car, so the drive shaft, which slits into there, turns this. So here's the side that doesn't need a new spring component. So this should just stay in there with the top mounts up there, the 4 bolts that go under your hood. So that whole spring component will stay there. That's where your steering knuckle bolts in, right there. And then this will slide into the steering knuckle, and your steering rod, and the bottom tie rod end. So that's what holds it all together. So that's what you want after you've taken it apart. There's just a couple quick tips here. This steering arm tie rod end is on a taper, and it's once you tighten it up, it presses in. So just have your nut down here, a couple 3 or 4 threads on there, and then give it a tap, and it should pop out. If not, get like a block, a 2x4 or something, put it on the bottom of it, and when this is loose, you can hit this down and it'll pop right out. So that's your completed job. Everything's back to where it was. Brake calipers on, shocks and springs on, rotor back on. Quick tip for putting that on is put your rotor on, put your lug nuts on, so that's on, and then put your caliper on, and that way this won't move around and just saves you time. So yeah, now it's just put the tire on, torque that to 180 foot-pounds. If you don't have a torque wrench, feel it out the best you can, but I recommend
getting one from a friend or something. That's the job. So this one took a couple days. You guys won't know it because I didn't film. But I had a bunch of problems. Tie rod ends I had to get almost replaced, and they got stripped, and I had to go to town and get new parts. But other than that, it's done. And when you're driving, stop every once in a while and check to see if your wheel bearing's getting hot. So just touch your rim if it's hot. Maybe loosen the lug nut off, or spindle nut off, sorry, just a little bit until it's not hot, and that should be somewhat the correct tightness. But really the best thing to do is just get the torque wrench and do it to spec. Okay, thanks.